What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. So in Fortnite Chapter 3, gaining arena points has become a lot more difficult for many players. With the average skill level going up and up, points per kill being reduced, and the threshold for champs being higher than ever before, it's no surprise that oftentimes people get frustrated by the fact that they struggle to make progress, or simply lose points in arena. That's why in today's video, I'll be going over how to stop losing arena points in Fortnite Chapter 3. This video is going to include various things that may be holding you back in arena, as well as how to fix them and get back to gaining points consistently. If this video does help you out, then be sure to drop a like on it and be sure to hit that big red subscribe button if you want to see more. And lastly, before we get into it, please consider using code Teckoh in the Fortnite item shop. It's 100% free for you and it really does mean a lot to me. But with that said, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So the first topic I want to discuss in today's video is going to be mental barriers. Oftentimes when you play arena, you're going to get really nervous or scared when you're getting into fights simply due to the fact that there are points on the line, and that can actually result in you playing worse and losing points in arena. To put it simply, when you get freaked out and nervous when you're going into a fight, you tend to tense up and usually play according to how you feel. You feel nervous, so you play more passive and you're afraid to go for plays to win fights. In return, your opponent ends up walking all over you and in turn winning the fight. Luckily, confidence in Fortnite is something that's fairly easy if you play your cards right. The first thing you're going to want to do in order to overcome fear and nervousness is to, believe it or not, simply stop thinking about your points. Now, I know it kind of sounds silly considering this video is how to stop losing arena points, but I genuinely can tell you guys this is the best way to go about it. In the end, as you improve at the game, your points are going to go up no matter what. That's a fact. And if you're sitting here trying to reach champs or something like that and you're obsessing over not losing points, it actually has the opposite effect from what you'd want, meaning it actually causes you to lose more points and potentially get worse at the game. Once you get this point-based mentality out of your mind, you're going to play so much calmer and realize that there's really nothing on the line except for your own ego. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, but that's just the way it is for pretty much all of us. As well as that, another very simple way to fight these mental barriers is simply to do more of whatever makes you the most nervous. For example, if you get nervous in fights, just make yourself push more and more fights, focus on playing calm and collected, and eventually you'll improve on that. It's sort of an exposure therapy type of deal where you'll get super nervous your first few times doing something, but then after a while it becomes common practice for you and it ends up being super easy. Being constantly exposed to something is absolutely the easiest way to get used to it and stop it from making you so nervous. Overall though, if you're struggling with getting nervous in game, that's easily one of the top reasons that you might be struggling to gain points in arena, and hopefully those tips can help you fix that situation. If you're getting nervous, it's super simple. Get points out of your mind, don't be afraid of pushing into difficult situations, and just let yourself get used to the things that make you nervous, and in the end you should be able to break those mental barriers with ease. The next topic I want to discuss, which may be holding you guys back in arena, is going to be playstyle issues. By playstyle issues, for the most part, I mean playing in a way that isn't optimal for your skill set, especially when it comes to playing passive or aggressive. For most players in arena, the most optimal way to gain points is going to be somewhere in the middle between passive and aggressive. You probably won't want to hot drop and go for 20 kills every single game, but you also probably don't want to camp with 0 kills and pray that nobody finds you. For most players, there's a solid middle ground where you're going to get both placement and elimination points, but you're not going to be under too much pressure to play a certain way that it impedes on your actual gameplay. Looking at my own gameplay, it's pretty simple. I'll usually land with my duo or trio at a moderately populated POI because, as you know, I pretty much only play duos and trios in arena. That's just because they're better for points. Think something like Sleepy Sound, Logjam Lumberyard, or Rocky Reels. I won't land at the first drop on the bus pretty much any time, but I also won't land anywhere that's super silent. We clear out our early game spot, and to be honest, we do play pretty aggressive afterwards. We usually grab some spider webs and swing around the map and push just about everyone we see, but that's also because W King is what we're all good at. Some of you guys might be just like us, where you land at a moderate spot, loot up, and then W key a ton of players in mid game, or you might be slightly more passive, where you only go for a few fights and try to focus on end game. But the main idea here is to not be on either extreme end of the spectrum and to adjust your playstyle according to whatever you're good at. That way you can maximize your performance in game. And playstyle doesn't necessarily have to be how often you fight as well, but it can also be something like how you approach a fight. For example, if you go into fights and always simply box up and wait for your opponent to push, you play super passive in fights, it makes it super easy for them to keep the pressure up and force you into a bad spot. Or if you constantly push with no regard for where you are or what your situation is, it's going to be a lot easier to third party you or catch you off guard with a solid play. So keep these things in mind as well, and if you do run into constant issues with things like third parties or certain playstyles that you fight against in game, it's really important to consider the factors that might be at play and figure out if it might not be a passive or aggressive issue, but rather the way that you actually play out certain situations. Onto our third section though, and we've got fighting mistakes. Another issue that holds back a lot of players in arena is simply the fact that they struggle in fights. And aside from having mental barriers in fights like we discussed earlier on in the video, another big issue is usually mechanical skill or one's ability to actually transfer their mechanical skill into fights. I guess you can say kind of like fighting sense. The biggest key when it comes to fighting mistakes is going to be to figure out where your weaknesses actually are. Maybe you struggle with your aim and you're whiffing a lot of shots, or maybe you're going for 50-50 plays where your opponent's able to predict your moves. Whatever you may be struggling with, there's a high chance that if you're simply getting outplayed in fights despite not being overly nervous or playing particularly poorly, that one or more aspects of your fighting simply aren't up to par. If this is the case, then I recommend you watch back some of your gameplay either by recording your fights or by going into replay mode. And if you are in replay mode, then I want you to look from both your own perspective and your opponent's. This will allow you to see multiple views on the same situation and might give you some really good insight as to why you're struggling in fights. And aside from actually finding your weaknesses in fights, another thing to consider is that you might just need to practice more fighting. You might simply be washed up due to too much creative, or your overall fighting sense might not be as strong as it should be. It could be any number of factors. But as you probably know, the best way to improve at something is to do it over and over and over, and fighting in this game is the same way. So what I recommend doing is doing things like realistic 1v1s, maybe some zone wars, maybe some realistic free-for-alls, as well as things like W keying in pubs and arena. However you want to do it, a sure way to improve at fighting in Fortnite is by simply doing more fighting in Fortnite. Alrighty guys, so those were the 3 most common errors that I see holding people back in arena: mental barriers, playstyle mistakes, and struggling in fights. But if you don't fit into those categories, there's one more thing you're going to want to look at in order to almost 100% guarantee that you fix your issues with losing points in arena, and that solution is going to be to simply find your weaknesses. The truth is, if you're losing arena points, something is going wrong with your gameplay. That being said, the biggest key to gaining arena points is going to be to find your weaknesses and fix them. As I somewhat alluded to in the fighting section, VOD reviewing is one of the best ways to do this. I recommend that you really take the time to watch back your games. Whether you died first thing off spawn or in the mid to end game, take some time to analyze your whole game and really take note of what happened. If you notice a pattern such as dying to spray, dying off spawn with no gun, or anything like that, then you've kind of started to get a lead on what might be happening. From there, really consider all the factors that went into the situation you ran into, and figure out everywhere you actually went wrong that led to your death in game. Once you've gone through this process enough times, you're going to have a much stronger understanding of what you actually need to do in order to stop losing points in arena and fix the problems you're having. VOD reviewing is the process of watching back your own gameplay, and it's no wonder why pretty much every single pro player spends tons of time doing it, doing pretty much the exact process I just outlined to you all. Improving at Fortnite is a very simple process. You're going to have issues in your gameplay, so you figure out how to solve those issues and then continue playing until you have more issues. Usually when someone's losing arena points, it comes down to patterns in their gameplay rather than just being bad at the game overall. So if you find that you're making a lot of silly mistakes or simply can't figure out why you're losing points, then taking some solid time to VOD review and really give your gameplay a good analysis is an almost guaranteed way to break through the issues you're having. But with all that said guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to stop losing arena points in Fortnite Chapter 3. Hopefully, if you're struggling to gain arena points or you're straight up losing points in arena, then this video gave you some solid ideas as to how you can fix that and start gaining points faster than ever. Improving at this game is a long process, and many of you guys might have a lot of work to do, but in the end, if you work on the things we discussed, you should see some major improvements. If this video did help you out, then be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. As well as that, consider using code Teckoh in the item shop, as it's 100% free and it really does help me out a bunch. Thank you so much to everyone who's using code Teckoh. With that said though, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.